The African painted dog, endangered due to human-wildlife conflict, finds an ally. Wildlife activists remove snares and turn them into crafts to raise funds to protect the dogs.
Community farming in the nation's capital. Asking estate developers to make farm spaces available, the National Agricultural Land Development Authority aims to boost food security in Nigeria.
African diaspora, changing the face of U.S. politics. Meet Dr. Oye Oweluwa, Washington, D.C.'s first Nigerian-American federal official.
Hello and thanks for tuning in the show that goes around the continent to bring stories near and far. I'm Ayo Tunde Balogun at Channels Television here in Lagos. I'm joined by Vincent McCory with a new look from Voice of America in Washington.
Well, thanks, I'm Vincent McCory at the Voice of America. Happy to be with you again for another edition of Africa 54. Our broadcast still looks a little different because of the global pandemic, but we truly appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. Let's start off with the latest from Nigeria. Channels Television in Lagos brings you that story.
Nigeria's National Agricultural Land Development Authority is appealing to estate developers in the country to make available spaces for neighborhood farming in the Federal Capital Territory. Speaking at the flag-off of the Grow Your Food initiative in Abuja, the Executive Secretary of the institution, Mr. Paul Ikone, said the drive is in line with government's efforts in ensuring food security in the country.
Over 200 youths from the FCT converged in this hall to gain technical expertise on how to grow food commodities like tomatoes, pepper and onions. The plan is to get them involved in farming in small spaces just around their neighborhood in the light of the threat to food security in the country.
It is not difficult to produce what we eat. All we need is discipline. And use this opportunity also to encourage and advise the estate developers that while they are developing estates across the urban cities in the country, they should make space for estate farming. That will help the residents of that estate in order to produce what they eat. I believe that the Minister of FCT will also, through the Land Development Authority, enforce this, that every estate developer will create space for growing vegetable within the estate.
The federal government continues to encourage Nigerians to consider farming for domestic consumption and export, an effort that the FCT administration is willing to drive.
It is my sincere hope that this program will once more increase an awareness among Nigerians on the benefits of backyard vegetable farming, not just for healthy and more nutritious diets, but also to the renaissance of agriculture as the mainstay of our economy.
One after the other, the youths file out to collect seedlings.
The seeds were imported, hybrid seeds. We source them from Israel. And that is why we are saying that Nigerians have to start doing this themselves, because the seeds are very expensive. And what we did today, in line with the President's vision, not just teaching them how to eat fish, but rather showing them how to fish.
Hopefully, efforts like this may just be the right step towards enhancing food production to mitigate the impact of the surge in the prices of food across the country.
Joining us to discuss this is the National President of the All Farmers Association of Nigeria, AFAN, Architect Kabir Ibrahim. Now, how does government hope to achieve this neighborhood farming considering the non-availability of land in our urban communities?
Well, the instruction to NANDA is to be able to do farm estates in 108 locations across Nigeria, one in every senatorial district. This is a very good effort. Once we determine who will own it and how it will be done, I think it will work for Nigeria.
Mr. Ibrahim, well, what difference will this actually make to cushion the effect of food insecurity in the country?
There is a concept in architecture by Moshe Safdie an Israeli architect who said for everyone a garden. So you can have a high-rise, you have your own porch, you have your own garden, and you can plant edible crops there. That you will minimize the use of soil, you will use water to drip into it and all that. So this concept is very possible to do, to implement in Nigeria, and it will augment the food system. Since the advent of COVID-19, if you notice, on 23rd September this year, the Secretary General of the UN admonished everyone to work assiduously to invigorate the food system in the world. So this concept is good and it is doable. If you take Abuja where we are, there are so many parks. These parks are not inhabited by the right kind of things, leisure and all that. And so you can convert some of it to where you plant edible fruits and vegetables. In the households, as I told you, both in the forecourt and the courtyards and at the backyard, you can do planting and you can even rear small animals and small birds. Like I learned to really farm in the way that I have been doing and up to this moment from my wife, who used to do backyard poultry farming in my compound. So it is possible to harness what we have and make it global in Nigeria so that the food system will be invigorated.
Now, you talked about young people there, or the youth, and from your explanation. How do you think we can actually get young Nigerians to be interested in farming, even at this critical moment in time?
Well, you see, our concept for that is that agriculture should be looked upon as a business. People should be able to make money, much more money than they will make if they follow the public service or some of these parastatals or even private organizations. When they farm, they produce and they sell with a very good margin, and they will be now out of poverty. They will be self-employed. That is very good. And then now that we have this policy in place that we are not importing any food, or we are not encouraging the importation of food, there will be need for it because of our population. And therefore, whoever gets into it and does it well will prosper. And it will attract the youth that way. That is the incentive, that you are able to make something out of farming. Because we had hitherto looked at farming as a chore that has to be done for subsistence. Now we are looking beyond that. We are looking at it as a business. And we are deploying a lot of technology, IT and all that. So youth are interested in all those things. And there are many of them calling us to want to join AFAN, for instance. So I'm happy that the agriculture that is now on the front burner is attracting the youth to it.
Mr. Kabir Ibrahim, National President, All Farmers Association of Nigeria, thank you for your thoughts on the program.
Thank you very much, too. Thank you.
Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. When Islamic State militants took over territory in Syria and Iraq, fighters from around the world joined them, often bringing children too young to know where they were going or why. Now, years later, with these fighters in captivity, many of their children remain in Syria, locked up and abandoned by their home countries. VOA's Heather Murdoch reports from Tal Maruf in northeastern Syria.
Officially, the center is a school where math, English, Arabic, and science are taught. But it is also a detention center for boys who are brought by their parents to the now defeated, self-proclaimed Islamic State when they were too young to have a say in the matter. They come from 22 countries, and some are as young as 12. The boys say they dream of going home, where they remember happier times.
I enjoy going out with my family, going to the shop, buy toys, and lots of stuff we used to do.
Mohammed is now 16. Like most boys here, he came to the Hori Center from the Al-Hol camp, where tens of thousands of women and children from all over the world have been living in squalor since IS fell almost 3 years ago. They are the families of IS militants who are either missing, in jail, or dead. The camp is a hotbed of extremism, where women openly enforce IS's draconian rules with violent punishments, including scores of murders. The Hori Center was set up by northeastern Syria's semi-autonomous government to try to prevent boys from growing up radicalized and becoming the next generation of militants.
The families in the camp have rights, so the children stay with their mothers until they are 12 years old. Then they are transferred to the Hori Center. If you go to Al-Hal camp, children will throw rocks at you, shout IS slogans, and call you infidels.
Currently, there are 12,000 suspected IS fighters from 55 countries in makeshift prisons in northeastern Syria, with no court to sentence the guilty or free the innocent. At the Hori Center, boys say they are also in a prison, one for children who have not been charged with crimes. Administrators do not dispute the tragedy of these boys, saying without outside help, their futures will be even bleaker. When they become 18, boys in the Hori Center are transferred to an adult jail. Many boys say they have nightmares about the darkness they face.
I have nothing to do if I stay here in Syria. I can't do anything to go back.
Administrators say Syrian boys can be put on trial and sentenced or sent home. But for foreign boys, there is no mechanism to provide any kind of future. The only hope, they say, is for foreign countries to take back their children. Heather Murdoch, VOA News, Tal Maroof, Syria.
A young Nigerian multimedia artist and photographer, Abdulrazak Babalola, and his team of artists are turning plastic waste to concept images in a studio in Lagos. Babalola says he hopes to provoke thought and discussions on environmental concerns and craves government attention.
In a studio in Lagos, Nigerian Angel waits patiently as a team of artists work to get her ready for her portrait. The Angel and her stylist are all being guided by 27-year-old artist Abdulrazak Babalola. Babalola specializes in concept images that he hopes will provoke thoughts and discussions about environmental concerns.
I just want the government to understand the message I'm trying to pass, which is plastic is actually beautiful, but at the same time, plastic pollution is dangerous. Like dangerous to humans and dangerous to our aquatic animals. Yeah. So I would really implore our government to really work on this and tackle this immediately, because if you look at other countries, even in Africa, I think plastics are already being banned.
Babalola says he conceived of the installation and series of portraits 2 years ago, but was unable to execute it due to the coronavirus outbreak and lockdowns that followed. When restrictions were lifted, it took him and his team 2 days to gather over 5,000 discarded plastic bottles. They spent another 2 days washing them. The bottles are glued onto boards shaped like angels' wings. A hole is drilled into the PET polyethylene bottles so that small light bulbs can be placed within. At the feet of the winged model, Babalola has placed several models in a heap. They represent fish dying in a waste-filled ocean.
If you look at the angel behind me, right here, you see that the wings are the one illuminating the angel while she's on oxygen mask, which means the wings serves as a beauty, like they are useful to her, which is illuminating her, and at the same time it is harming her, which is the oxygen mask she's putting on.
Plastic waste in the form of discarded bags, food and drink packaging is ubiquitous in Lagos, a city of about 20 million people. Babalola hopes his art will boost efforts to educate people about the dangers plastic waste poses to the environment and ultimately provoke positive change. The waterways of Babalola's home city lead into the Gulf of Guinea, raising concerns about the amount of plastic entering the sea.
It's time now for a short break. As we do, we remind you to visit our website, channelstv.com, for news and programming around the clock. You can also find us at youtube.com/channelsweb. Still to come, the world's largest collection of African photo books. Ghanaian photographer Paul Ninson shares a collection containing images from Africa or taken by photographers of African descent.
Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. The African wild dog, or African painted dog, is one of the world's most endangered mammals, with less than 7,000 remaining, mostly because of human-wildlife conflict. In Zimbabwe, the painted dog conservation group finds and removes thousands of snares every year that kill or injure the dogs and turns them into crafts to raise funds for their protection. Columbus Mavunga reports from Hwange, Zimbabwe.
Situated near Hwange National Park, Zimbabwe's biggest wildlife sanctuary, Painted Dog Conservation's anti-poaching unit removes and collects over 3,000 snares a year put by poachers. David Kuvaogam, operations manager at Painted Dog Conservation, says that saves quite a number of animal lives, especially the endangered painted dogs.
Poachers themselves don't target painted dogs. They target the prey for painted dogs, which is mainly kudu and impala. But when they set the snares, they set in tracks where kudus and impala move, and painted dogs who are looking for food, they also move in the same tracks as they track their food.
53-year-old July Mhlanga is one of the artists benefiting from the snares collected from the bush by Painted Dog Conservation's anti-poaching unit. The artists turn the snares into crafts and sell them to zoos around the world.
Now I've taken all these kids to higher school and they've finished. So it means that there is an improvement that I managed to pay, apart from asking from other people for money.
Because of the informed position of science, that we realize that they play a critical role in the environment, and then the persecution stopped. But however, the decline had reached such levels that dogs for the foreseeable future would remain a low species population.
With intensified anti-poaching on the continent, Mazikanda says Africa would have a good number of painted dogs to keep the herbivores population in check to ensure vegetation is not overgrazed. Columbus Mavunga for VOA News, Hwange, Zimbabwe.
A Ghanaian in New York, Paul Ninson, has built the world's largest collection of African photo books containing images from Africa or taken by photographers of African descent. Ninson began his collection shortly after arriving in New York on a photography scholarship back in 2019, despite the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown, which paused his obsession for a while. He accrued most of his books working odd jobs and taking out personal loans to cover costs.
The Queen storage unit is already packed from wall to ceiling with photo books, but Ghanaian New Yorker Paul Ninson still finds space for another stack of vintage National Geographics. The magazines, of which Ninson has every issue dating back 40 years, are a fraction of the 30,000 books he has collected since the COVID-19 pandemic began, all containing images from Africa or taken by photographers of African descent.
My way through photography was just looking at magazines and photography books. Some of these pictures are incredible. Some of these pictures tell stories of places, but mostly sometimes what I wonder is, what if those people in those communities contribute to these stories in a way of self-expression of who they are? Do people in these communities accept how they are being depicted, especially the Africans?
Spread across 16 New York storage units and several other spaces along America's East Coast, Ninson's collection is likely the largest of its kind. Thanks to a successful crowdfunding campaign made popular by the photoblog Humans of New York, Ninson is sending his collection to Ghana's capital, Accra, where he plans to open Africa's largest photography library. Ninson envisions the Dinkin Center, meaning take the lead in his local language, as a museum-cum-learning institution where aspiring African photographers can take workshops, rent equipment, and access studio space.
Pandemic changed us a lot, but for me, what happened was that I was constantly emailing people, constantly emailing galleries, collections, private collectors, and telling them my vision and what I want to do. And that is where it led me to massive amount of books. So during pandemic, I was in warehouses packing books. I was in people's basement packing books by myself, and that's how I was able to amass a lot of books.
When Friend and Humans of New York founder Brandon Stanson discovered what Nitin was doing, he decided to promote his efforts on the blog alongside a crowdfunding campaign. It raised $1 million in a single day. Nitin has doubled his collection since then, traveling up and down the East Coast in search of new editions.
The different diaspora groups that make up the United States inevitably have fought for representation through the voting process. VOA is profiling a group of emerging politicians with direct ties to Africa who are changing the face of American politics. One is Oye Owelowa, whose parents came from Nigeria.
This is Dr. Oye Owelowa. I live in Washington, D.C., and I'm the first Nigerian American elected as U.S. representative. I took my oath of office on January 2nd in front of the Martin Luther King Memorial in D.C.
Preserve and protect and defend the Constitution of the United States and the District of Columbia Home Rule Act.
Everybody who was with me from day one was there. My younger brother, who's my best friend, who also served as my treasurer, my right-hand man, they were able to witness me give my commencement speech to becoming DC's first Nigerian American federal official. I just thought about everybody that got me to this point. My parents, who were born and raised in Nigeria, who taught me about community, about selflessness, giving back to others. Also, all the people who've invested in me, whether it's teachers, whether it's my current neighbors, just everything that brought me to that point. It was a very overwhelming experience.
Together, we will fight for change and finally achieve DC statehood.
When I first ran for U.S. representative, it was all about bringing equality for DC residents. Right now, we pay taxes. We pay our fair share as American citizens, but we don't get back what everybody else says. My other message was being a representative to people who share my perspective. The Nigerian Americans, the millennials, Black people, Muslim Americans, anybody who sees themselves fighting to see themselves represented, I shared that voice, and that's what I bring to the law-making process. Unlike other representatives of other states, this seat is a non-voting, non-seated U.S. representative. So I don't get any federal funding or budget from my office. So because of that, I still continue my day practice as a healthcare professional. And what that has done is inspired me to also focus on healthcare just as much as DC statehood.
So this is the first shot of 2.
So once I'm able to become a seated voting member of Congress, I'm going to work on changing our healthcare system, make sure it's fair and affordable for every American. Being a healthcare worker, I really believe that there's an opportunity for me to educate the community about vaccines, especially the COVID vaccine.
All right, guys. And like I said, thanks for doing your part to get us past the pandemic.
Thank you.
And if you know anybody else who needs to get one, they can do the same thing. All right?
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, guys.
My family back in Nigeria and extended friends, they are extremely proud of this accomplishment. This is the first time a Nigerian American has been elected to such a position. And they see this as not only as a win for me, but also an opportunity for the younger generation to get more inspired in the political process. And not even just Nigerian Americans, but just people from all the diaspora. Because we come here, we excel academically, we achieve a lot, but right now there's not a lot of political capital in our communities. So this is an opportunity for us to really get involved in a lawmaking process. But as a Black man as well, I feel like this is also an opportunity for young Black people to understand that this is our opportunity to take our energy in the streets and bring it to a lawmaking table. This is an opportunity to really be involved in the solutions of what's going on in our community and just make life just a little bit more comfortable, a little bit easier for the next person. And that's an opportunity that I take very, very seriously.
Well, and that's our show for today. You can find all the continent's top news and world news online at voaafrica.com. Check it out. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. Channels Television has our last word from Lagos.
We look forward to bringing you another show next week. ChannelsTV.com is your source for news and other programming. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. Thanks for watching and goodbye.